want to welcome you to an amazing episode where I'll have a chance to talk to this amazing gentleman. And let me tell you, he is an author and celebrity photographer. We're talking about Jerome Ewing, who has released his latest book, Face the Music and Pictures, which features a collection of photographs taken over the years. Now, the former Hopkins Park and Kankakee resident who was born in Chicago features decades of work in his latest book. And let me tell you, this book is traveling from 1977 to 2007. Yeah, we're talking decades where he was blessed to rub elbows with some of the world's biggest stars. And he has also had another book earlier that is entitled More Than Motown, the Jerome Ewing story that was published in 2014. But now, Face the Music and Pictures includes over 200 pictures, and it's sure to leave you speechless. Now, let me tell you, we're going to get into all the how he became a photographer, just this amazing artistic journey. First, welcome to Successful Thinking, Jerome Ewing. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me, Christy. God
You
bless.
know, First of all, I've had an opportunity to chat with you in previous conversations, to come by your production studio where we'll be talking about and also learning more about Best TV Network, which I saw on Roku. And I was like, oh my God, I've seen that channel. But before we get into the business of Jerome Ewing, can we talk about the artist and the creative? Understand you're from Chicago, but also Kankakee. Give me that bio, if you would. How did you get started?
Well, growing up in Chicago, that was a trying time. That was the glory years for me back then. I grew up in a project called the Village, and the Village was known for being very tough. Um, uh, and we moved from the Village to another community that was even tougher. And so I found myself getting into all kind of troubles. So by 1973, my grandmother passed, and my mother decided to leave Chicago and go to Hopkins Park, Illinois, where her brother was. And so now I'm leaving all this mischief in the city of Chicago, and now I become a country boy. And it was like night and day, but I think it saved my life in a way because the path that I was on in Chicago, you follow the leader, and sometimes that you follow the leader into the grave. And so it was a blessing to leave Chicago and go into a different environment, and it's kind of slowed me down. um, and we stayed in Hopkins Park in the Kankakee area maybe 3 to 5 years. In 1977, my mother decided that she wanted to move out of that area. My aunt had had a was in an accident, and she couldn't stay in the cold weather anymore. So they decided to move to Phoenix. But on their way to Phoenix, they stopped in Memphis, Tennessee to see my uncle. And the rest is history. We never left.
The mighty
So,
Mississippi has a magic of its own. So you're on your way to Phoenix, and just to visit an uncle in Memphis, and the rest truly is history. Of
it's
course,
history.
that means that you have been exposed since the 70s to the evolution of the soul sound that was happening in
Yes.
Memphis, as well as I
Yes.
think the early years of the classic rap sound as it was beginning to emerge. And my question to you, Jerome, is when did you get bit by the creative bug? What came first? Was it more so just artistic expressions or photography? How did you end up in that world?
Well, um, I can remember actually leaving leaving the Chicago area, moving to the Memphis area. And one of my fondest memories was a publication in Jet magazine about all the new discos that was out. So in '77, it was the disco fever. Well, one of the clubs that was in the Ebony magazine was in Memphis. It was called 2001. So my motivation to get into Memphis was I wanted to come and go see this club that was in this magazine. So until then that I actually got to meet a guy named Pierre. He was a photographer at 2001. And I noticed that all of the ladies was going over there with Pierre. And that really piqued my interest at that time. And secondly, I was playing. I have a baseball background, and one of my neighbors ended up being Gene Bowlegs Miller. And some of your viewers may want to Google his name. But anyway, he had a WDIA softball team. And one day, walking to the store, I see him out there playing. I said, "Oh my God, that's." Anyway, I didn't know who he was, and I just asked him did they looking for other players, and they had no idea what kind of player I was. But anyway, I joined the team, and come to find out later that Gene Bowlegs Miller was, first of all, he went to school at Booker T. Washington with Maurice White, and Maurice White went on to start Earth, Wind, and Fire. But they were together at Chess Records, and
Yes.
Bowlegs actually was the trumpet player for Etta James. He
Wow.
discovered Ann Peebles, and then I later found out that he also discovered Peabo Bryson. So Bowlegs would never talk about that at the time, but the motivation was every time we play a game, Bowlegs would open up the trunk and he had all these records in it. And so from the records, I started DJing. Yeah, my good friend Odell Tidwell had a club called First Place, and I ended up DJing. And so that that started. That's where that started. As far as the pictures, that club I'm telling you about, that Odell's club, Odell's right hand man, one of his right hand men at the time was a guy named Robert McKenzie. Robert McKenzie, we call him Cartide, was the stage manager, one of the stage managers for the Barcades.
Wow. This
So
is
every show that come to town, they would go to. So I convinced them. I'm a photographer. I'm like, y'all need to take me with y'all every time. Let's take pictures and put the pictures up on the wall. So we became a threesome. So every time a show came to town, we all went. And so I had started to build a nice portfolio from that. So,
mm,
so by the time I moved to Atlanta in 1985, 86, I had a pretty nice portfolio already. So
this is amazing just how, that one stopover to visit an uncle led you on this amazing journey. And the names that you are dropping are legends, not just in Memphis, but across the country and around the world. And that's one of the magical things about Memphis too. You can meet anybody who's somebody in a short amount of time. And if you have gumption, you can definitely get into the click. Like you say, hey, y'all need me to also take pictures. So, and
yes.
FYI, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get free concert tickets or want access to free events, become a photographer.
Yeah. I tell you, Chris, one day it was amazing. Odell called me one day. It was 2:30 in the morning. My phone rang. I said, I'm hoping this is Pam Grier or somebody, but it was Odell. And Odell said, man, guess what? Guess who just walked in the club? I said, who? He said, Stevie Wonder. I said, what? Now, at the time, I had never took a picture of a celebrity.
Mhm.
Man, I jumped up, put my clothes on, got down to the club. And as an eager young photographer, I walked right into the club, and I was mesmerized. Stevie was sitting there eating. I whipped out my camera, took a picture. All of a sudden, somebody grabbed me. Bodyguard grabbed. What are you? But and that story is in the book, and I won't spoil it. And that story has a part two because the
Mm,
bodyguard that grabbed me actually 5 years later, that ended up being Michael Jackson's bodyguard. And it's a beautiful story coming with my
wow.
next book, how part two. So we'll get into that. But so
Wow.
everything kind of bleeds into it. But I was just on a
related.
journey, Christy,
Yes.
and it's just been amazing. And this book had to come out because as things was happening to me, I was saying to myself, "This is going to be a movie one day."